Hello, analyzers, and welcome back to Let's Analyze This. I hope you guys are ready for today's show. As promised last week, our discussion today will be: is an independent woman every man's dream? Keep that in mind while I introduce our guests to you. So, first of all, of course, you have myself, Talia, and you also have my lovely co host, Kay. On the panel today, we have CJ. CJ is into management. Hello, CJ. How are you feeling today? Fantastic. We also have Moses. Moses is a web designer, um, and he's here as well today. How are you feeling, Moses?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
Fantastic. So let's get right into it. Now, the Oxford Dictionary describes an independent woman as someone who is able to fend for herself, someone who relies on nobody for her income, and just generally an all-rounded woman. Now, the Urban Dictionary, on the other hand, describes an independent woman as a woman who can pay their own bills, buy their own stuff, and does not allow a man to affect her stability or self-confidence. She basically supports herself entirely. Saying that, let's get into it and let's analyze this topic. With that in mind, let me go first to Kay. Kay, to you, what do you think an independent woman is as a woman?
As a woman, I think an independent woman is somebody who has her finances locked. So she's not dependent on any person. Also, it will be somebody who, even in a relationship, in a marriage or whatever, they wouldn't have to depend or wouldn't have to cut down. Say if the relationship broke down, they wouldn't have to cut back on anything because they have it all locked. So
Right.
I wouldn't, even if there are children involved, I think an independent woman would still be able to fend for those children without, seeking like child support or all of this stuff. They would still have it locked. They might get it, but it wouldn't be something that they needed to survive, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me go to CJ. CJ, what would you class as an independent woman? And would you say that that's a man's dream?
Well, I think it's easy to describe independence as only being financial. But
Right.
I think to look at the whole picture, if a woman is able to fend for herself in other ways, if she, I don't know, take for example, if she's able to change the tires on her car herself,
Mm-hmm.
would that be classed as being independent? She doesn't need a man to do that. You know,
Right.
she. It's also, I think, about being able to actually find out things when she wants them. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily about, for example, changing the tire herself, knowing who to call to be able to do that. You see what I mean? So independence covers a wide range of things, in my opinion. Now,
Mm-hmm.
as to whether it's every man's dream, I think that is dependent on the man. Because
Right.
for some men, an independent woman could be it could have an effect on their ego. So some men will not be able to put up with that. So as to whether it's every man's dream, I think it's some men's dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of men would have I think some men would have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you made that point because I watched something a few days ago and she described, it was actually a lady speaking, and she described an independent woman as somebody who can, like you rightly said, change a tire, somebody who can cook, even though she probably could afford all the takeouts that she needed, but somebody who can cook, somebody who can rightly search for whatever she needed at the right time. So it's interesting that you made that point. But let me come to Moses. Moses, how do you feel about that term independent woman? And do you think it's every man's dream? So I want to get, because you're both men, I want to get your point of view about it as well.
Okay, as CJ has rightly said, people tend to classify the word independence to finances only, majority, basically. However, it's beyond that. For me, I would classify an independent woman to be someone who has her own independent mind, like who can make decisions by herself. You know,
Right.
when you have the ability to refuse things and to accept things you don't or you like. I don't know if that makes sense. So for a lady to say no, I don't want that, and to say, oh yes, I want that. For me, that's an independent mind. So it doesn't have to be finances only. I understand that gone are the days, whereas to be independent is when a man have you in a house and then you can provide financially to the family. You get what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, okay, now go back to the terms of, is that every man's dream? I would say no, because for the fact that you asked the question, that's a decision to make. So I think that depends on the word dream itself is subjective to an individual. So if that's your
Mm.
dream, so if that's your own decision, it's subjected to you. So for me, it might be
Right.
yes, but it's almost so if you have to use the word every man's dream, so my answer will be simply no. It can't be every
Right.
man's dream.
It's
And
interesting you said that.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
go ahead, sorry.
the funniest thing is, I believe a successful person will want an independent woman or a man that they can depend on, and also people that can depend on them. That's an irony there, because
Mm.
I can be dependent, but to be honest, people confuse the word independence again. That you're someone that can stand alone or can do things by yourself. But let us not forget that nothing or nobody can survive just as a single entity. You would definitely be needing someone's support to depend on.
Well, can I just say something in there?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I agree with almost everything that you've just said. However, I don't know if I disagree on the point that nobody can survive as a single entity, and I'll tell you why.
Mm.
So as Jason said earlier, can you change your own tires, or do you know the right people to call to change your tires?
Right.
And I don't think you have to know how to change tires. I think you have to know when to change the tires and whom to contact to change the tires. As long as I can afford somebody to cook my meals, like you said, Talia, earlier, that an independent woman needs to know how to cook. I don't think she needs to know how to cook either. I think as long as she knows how to get her food, doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
depend on anybody to get her food for her. She can pay people to make it for them. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily, I think you just have to know the right people and the right channel to go to get all of these things sorted.
You said it all as well. So you have to know the right people. That means
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
there's a tendency of you depending on someone in a way. You have to know the
Mm-hmm.
right people. That means the people involved is actually dependent on you.
Okay, so maybe I should rephrase and say the
But
independence that I'm, yeah.
so I'm just gonna jump in there to say the dependence on those right people is does not define the woman. It
Right.
in a relationship. This is what I mean.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that woman in her relationship doesn't need her man to do those things, but
Exactly.
she knows
Right.
people that can do that for her. So that's where there's a
Exactly.
slight difference
So I
between
think when you go outside
dependent
of the
women and
relationship, I think when you go outside of that relationship, when you say an independent woman, really and truly, we're talking about in a relationship. Okay,
Mhm.
because even the question itself is an independent woman every man's dream in within
Dream.
the relationship. So I can be in my relationship and be like, my car's oil needs changing, and I know when it comes up on the dashboard, I know whom to call to get it fixed. I don't have to tell my man and be like, you know what, the oil needs changing, because that will make me dependent on him to
so for
sort
the
that out.
first part, you
Right.
don't need to ask him what does that light mean.
Exactly.
Right. It's interesting that we're having this debate already because I read somewhere, actually, no, I watched a program where Steve Harvey was being interviewed, and it was funny about this topic. And Steve Harvey said that he wrote a book, and in that book he has stated that men show love via three P's. He stated the three P's as them being having the ability to provide, them having the ability to profess, and them having the ability to protect. Now, it's interesting that we've just had this little scenario because for me, going back to changing the tire, I think that being independent doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be able to change that tire, as we rightly said. It means that you need to be, for me, I need to be able to call my man as that man, because that's part of his three. Because I feel like sometimes being independent, you kind of strip a man of his duties.
Who gave him those duties though?
But that's for the man to feel a
that's
man,
point.
like I said.
Point.
So let me push that to Moses. Having said that, do you feel that in a relationship, even though you have a woman, we have stated all the characteristics of an independent woman now, do you think that a man needs to prove himself? Because to me, if I'm a man and I have to be with an independent woman, and I have to, I need to feel relevant in that relationship. And in order for me to feel relevant in that relationship, there has to be things that I am able to do for my woman as an independent woman to prove my relevance. Because being in a relationship to me is about needing and wanting each other. I feel that you do need to depend on each other for that. Okay, before you come in there, I'm going to push this to Jason, and then you can say, so Jason, what are your thoughts around that? Do you think a man has to have those 3 P's? So the ability to protect, to provide, and to profess in order to feel himself in a relationship.
I believe the book from Steve is Think Like a Man or something like that, right? I'm sure there's a book here where he talked about a lot of these things. However, if you go back even before Steve Harvey, back in the day, man was the hunter-gatherer, right?
Yeah.
Right. So man has always had that expectation that he goes away. I mean, the phrase was coined to bring back the bacon, right? So in some ways, if you go back to our primal instinct, if a woman plays a part in that, then in some ways you would think it would take away from the man. It would, take away something from him. However, that was back in the day. These days, it's a new world. When in the stage where everybody plays a part in the relationship, right? So some men are happy with that. Some men are still stuck back in the day. So it would be a problem for them. It would make them feel a certain way. It would make them feel like, okay, so if I'm not here, she won't miss me. So I could put a little knock on their ego, like I said before. What I would do though is throw it back to you ladies to say, well, what do you think men want? Do you think an independent woman is every man's dream? What are your thoughts?
Well, I can answer that. I think that we need to, in this day and age, we need to come off the opinion that we need men need to do certain provide, protect, and profess to be able to be valued. I think that, so what do we do about a man who is unable to change the tires? Do we say they're useless? What do we say about a woman that doesn't know how to cook? Are they useless? No. We've given each other these gender roles that we've assigned to both genders that, we turn to class people as failures when they're unable to meet those certain standards. Oh, she can't cook ordinary rice. Oh, how terrible. Or he can't change tires, or he doesn't know what it means on the dashboard. We need to kind of, cut each other some slack. If a man knows how to cook and that's his way of professing his love, then it should be that.
That could fall into the provide category though. If he can cook, then he's providing that part of the relationship.
I'm sure that's not what Steve Harvey meant. I think he meant, when he said that, I think he was talking about bringing home the bacon, because that's what society tends to see as provision from a man.
But let's not put words into his mouth. He merely said provide. Provide can be so many other things. It can be.
Can cooking be classed as providing? No.
Well, you're providing the meal. I think so. What do you think, Moses?
See, again, I will go back to what CJ said earlier. Gone are the day whereby for a woman to be dependent, or the roles they classify them as, is to, be able to give birth to children and to be cooking at home. Meanwhile, then it's very, I don't know, for me it's absurd now for us to be judging some things based on culture, because the world evolves. Now you can't compare what is back then in 20 years to what's going on now. And in terms of the protect, provision, and the profess, there are some words that sounds like, yes, the keywords. They are, it sounds very, very catchy, but to be honest, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Absolutely.
See, a woman with an independent mind is not afraid, as I've said, is not afraid to say no to people. Okay, I'll give an example. I don't know, I can speak for myself. I don't think there is any man who wants a woman who is going to be, or who is always going to be in need of financial favors from me all the time. All the time. So at once, I want a lady or a woman that, that she can make decisions by herself. Like, oh, I know that if I'm not there, she can do some things. So in other words, he is taking away the ability to protect the woman at that time, the ability to provide at that time, or to profess anything, because that by herself she can do all those three things anyway. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Those three things, it doesn't have to come from him. The woman can actually generate this thing by herself. Okay. If for example, my woman is stuck somewhere, and I just said, oh, I'm coming to pick you up. I'm going to do that. I just going to say, oh, babe, thank you for coming to rescue me. But trust me, if I'm not there, yeah, she will still be able to make some decisions to get home by herself. But for the fact that the woman was able to even come there to rescue, I think that's just make relationship sweet for me. It makes sense for her to shop at that time, but all these things are not really necessary. It does make sense for the guy
Sorry,
to
that
come
that
into.
you made. If I could jump in, that point you made though that speaks to affection rather than dependence.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we need to draw the distinction, I think, because dependence, it's almost like a need.
Yes.
So
Right.
if it wasn't you at that point, it couldn't
It could
be
be somebody else.
Else.
And that's the distinction I feel that needs to be made.
I don't know. So
Right.
personally, I think as a man, again, I'll speak for myself. I think I'll be more attracted to a woman that she's in control of her life. Yeah, whereby
Right.
that she can focus on her own dreams, elevate herself, because I will think, oh, this she's not going to be a burden on me, or she's not going to have to be fully dependent on me in terms of finances, in terms of decision making. I don't know if that makes sense. I know that
Yeah.
can be a bit scary for some guys, like, oh, what about if she's the breadwinner? Sorry, there's nothing even wrong in a woman being a breadwinner of the family. It doesn't see, culture has made us believe that it has to be this man thing. See,
Popular opinion 101.
yeah,
But
because someone will tell you, oh, my woman is going to raise. Someone said, oh, I'm going to raise this child. Oh, I'm going to. I said, yo, so you're not raising this child. We are raising this child. It's not your duty to raise the child.
right,
It's our
I get that.
responsibility. Because again, culture has made us understand that, oh, the woman has to be at home. If something goes wrong, it has to be the woman.
Right.
So these are things that I want, that independent woman. I want a dependent woman whereby we can do things together. We can make decisions again, as I've said, that he or she. I don't know why I'm using the. I think it goes both ways. That she can make my own family stay safe. I know when she's at home or when she's in charge of the family decisions, things are still going smoothly.
Right. Okay. So if I can elaborate a little bit, or summarize what you just said, you're saying basically that for you, an independent woman is solely somebody that can make decisions for herself, that can ensure that the family is running smoothly without your input. If I got that correctly.
And if it comes from me, fine. I'm not saying it doesn't have to. Yeah, it does have to, but we shouldn't depend on the man for things to
Right.
run.
Okay. So let me come to Kay on this part, because I just had something flash through my mind while you were saying that. So okay, I think if I can get what everybody's saying, everybody's in agreement that, well, almost in agreement that an independent woman is every man's dream, right? So what do you think about, or do you still think that a woman that doesn't necessarily 100% can cater, so maybe she doesn't necessarily have her finances on lockdown, but she is able to run the family, maybe she doesn't have her finances on lockdown because she doesn't earn as much as the man, but she can still run the family. She can still make decisions that are necessarily for the family. And perhaps maybe she can't change the tire, but she's still, and she probably wouldn't know who to call for the tire, but she has every other aspect locked down, but doesn't necessarily have some key part that we would class as an independent woman. From the definition that I got from the dictionary and even the Urban Dictionary, what would you say about that woman? Is she an independent woman?
So, say for example, I'm just trying to use what you said, which is, so say for example, this woman she drives a Mercedes Benz, for example,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and she's in a relationship, they have kids, and the man leaves. If she has to change that Mercedes Benz for a Ford Focus, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that things run smoothly, absolutely, that's not the issue here. But however, if she has to then now say, so you can make changes, okay? So let's say you don't have to earn as much as the man, or you don't have to earn, nothing, or you don't have to earn, just being able to live within your means, and
Right.
being able to take care of things with whatever it is you have.
You have, right.
Makes you an independent woman, in my opinion. So if I have to say, because the man is there, my expenses are a bit less because we're relying on each other, and then he leaves, and I decide, you know what, I can't afford to pay for the Mercedes Benz, because now I have to take care of other things as well. I have to change this car for I don't know, for a Ford Focus, and that's what I'm going to do. That is an independent woman, because as Moses said, she has a mind of her own. She knows what she needs to do to get to where she wants to be. She doesn't need to say, okay, now you have to pay child support or whatever, or I'm going to do other things, and continue to rely on other people to make sure I'm still able to drive the Mercedes Benz. That's what I think.
Sorry, if may add to what I've said earlier, men also tends to worry a lot about making ends meet for the family, because ideally, obviously, they know, like, oh, they need to cater for the family. But then what would happen if they fell short of cash or fell short of finances? Now, for an independent woman they have at home, they'll be rest assured that, oh, I've got a woman at home that, oh, I can count on always. You know what? That independence in that woman even wins the man's heart in the first place, because I know that there's someone I can rely on in case.
So he's not an independent man then?
He is, but I'm just saying, so that in case,
hey,
like independent today,
I'm just saying, why you? Yeah, go on.
No, what I'm saying, that you're financially stable today doesn't make you totally independent. Yeah, things might change tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. In case things happens tomorrow, because every man's goal is to make ends meet for the family. But if things go the other way around, maybe they invested in a business and then run out of cash, then she'll be rest assured that, oh, you know what, my partner is there to take over. She's still going to make sure that the family is running smoothly. And that independence for me would win my heart from a woman. I know, oh, yeah, she's capable of doing some things for the meantime.
You know what? Something just popped into my head as you were talking. Two can, because I do believe that two can. In a relationship, it's two of you. So yes, maybe if the man, things aren't going smoothly for the man, then yeah, the woman can pick up a bit of slack. I think that's the point that you were trying to make. Yeah. CJ, I just have a question for you.
If
Go
I
ahead.
could
Sorry.
what this was saying, the way I would look at it is, if you were in a work environment, for example, and let's say your manager or your colleague was going to be off for a while, right? If they were comfortable handing over to you without second guessing every decision you were making, then I think that sort of shows that they accept your independence, and they feel like you're capable enough to make those decisions without affecting the work quality. So if you were in a relationship environment, for example, then your man needs to know that you're independent enough to make decisions that will still be beneficial for the couple. You see what I mean? So that in some ways points to a level of independence. What's interesting though is when I put this question out to a couple of group chats, mostly male dominated, to get a view as to what other people thought. And I think the views vary slightly depending on which part of the world you're in. And I found that some people in different parts of the world had the view that no, I don't want my woman to be any sort of independent. So, and that's also a factor that is worth considering.
I think some men, I honestly to chip in, I think some men have to feel needed. Even women, we sometimes feel the need to feel needed. And I'm happy to play damsel in distress for you. I'm happy to say, oh, can you open this can for me, even though I can open the damn can myself. But so I think we just sometimes want to feel needed, and we can do that, and we can rely on each other. And I do believe that we can rely on each other without being totally reliant on each other. So to answer the question, to be honest, I don't think every man it's every man's dream to be with an independent woman, because I think that we all somewhere have the need to feel needed.
I love that we've come to this conclusion ourselves, because it just simply, to me, brings back what Steve Harvey said about the 3 Ps. That I think in a relationship, a man does need to feel that he's protecting, he does need to feel that he's providing, and he does need to feel that he's professing.
But I need to feel that as well. I don't think only a man has to feel it. I don't agree with Steve Harvey. I think it goes both ways. I need to feel like my contribution, whether it's in terms of providing, professing, and I have to, honestly, I generally have to I don't want to say reconfirm, but I have to, I can't find the English words right now. I have to, reassure and profess to my partner that, you know what, you're, for lack of a better word, you're the best, or something like that. I have to profess that on a regular basis, because the body does need to, we do need to hear that. I think we do need to hear that. And no, I don't think it goes just one way, that a man has to feel that. I think we all have to feel that. That's what I think.
I honestly believe you're very correct when you say we do need to feel that. I do feel that for a man to actually tick those boxes, for me, he's actually doing the same for me, allowing me to, because I can be providing, I can be professing, and I can be protecting in different ways. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the way that we are actually highlighting right now. So I can be providing in so many other ways that isn't financial. I can be protecting the household in so many other ways that isn't physical protecting, as a man would want to protect. Like, for instance, let's say we go to a party and then something happens. In that instance, a man will want to step up to protect his woman or protect his family. I think that's the line in which Steve Harvey was coming at, in bringing those 3 Ps. Let me just ask one final question, because I do understand that we do have to bring this to a close. CJ, I'm happy that you brought in the ego thing. Do you think that is strictly cultural? Because you did mention that you put it out in the group chat, and you noticed that it was dependent on where people lived. So do you believe that it's strictly cultural on how people perceive and how people would accept an independent woman?
I don't think it's cultural. I just think it's an individual thing. So you could be in any part of the world and still feel a certain way about an independent woman. The reality is that guy that feels he wants an independent woman, halfway into the relationship might think, well, actually, this is not what I signed up for.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It'd be difficult to gauge the ego point based on cultural influences. But I think the more important thing than the ego is knowing the person you're with and knowing when to show a certain part of you, or maybe hold back a bit, just to like Kay said, reaffirm certain feelings within the person you're with. So no, I don't necessarily think it's based on cultural influences.
Okay, fine. If I can just get UK to just say what your beliefs are on that as well. If you think it's cultural, or if you think no, it's just not every man's
I
thing.
do absolutely think it is cultural. I think that because back in the day, you know, the man was the, you know, the hunter, and the woman was the homekeeper. That's why we have instances where a man, or what we have now in society, that a man feels useless essentially, or man feels less than if he's unable to completely provide for his woman. That is why women feel the need to demand from men and say, you know, you're not doing your duties if you cannot buy me the latest wig or something. And
Wig.
I do hope that we raise better men, and you just let men know that it's not your duty to provide. You should both be able to rely on each other. You should be able to give gifts and, you know, profess all of this love, but it should be vice versa. So she should be able to give the same as well. So I do think it's cultural. I think it comes from, you know, back in the day where that was the norm. But fortunately, and I'm very happy that society is changing. And yeah, I think that if you go to cultures like where women aren't necessarily allowed to work, or in like parts of Africa, compared to, you know the Western world where we live in right now, you find that women think about these things differently. Does a man have to provide? No, I have to. When you ask Caucasian, or I'm not saying everybody believes that, but I'm saying I think that majority would feel that it's not a man's duty to provide or do all of those things, and where in Africa it would be seen as he's a failure if he can't.
Fantastic. So drawing this conversation to a close now, it brings me back to my phrase of toucan. I definitely am of the belief that if we both work together the same way, if we both are working hard, you know, we can pick each other up, the independence or no independence, we can both work together, and two can definitely make a better home than one person strictly being independent and wanting to take over. I definitely feel that, you know, in a relationship, it doesn't have to be two. And bearing that in mind, I want to say thank you very much for this fantastic conversation. Thank you both to CJ and to Moses for honoring our invitation. We really are glad that you could join us today. So, analyzers, thank you all for watching our show today. Please leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Just to let you know what our next show will be about. So, we are going to start a 3-part series of Know Your Place. And the first topic will be mother-in-law. It's a mother-in-law edition. So let us know where you want what direction you want the conversation to go in our comment section. Also, if you are not following us, please follow us, subscribe to our channel, and give this video a thumbs up. Share and like with your friends and family. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.
Thank you.